Hi everybody, it's Brenda from My Paper Crafting Life, and I wanted to come in and show you how I use texture paste on this workshop that I just completed not too long ago. It's called Passport to Adventure, and you can find it on my website at mypapercraftinglife.com. Click on the shop tab and then specialty store, and it will take you right to it. Now, let me show you the pages. I went ahead and created 6 pages using the beautiful Passport to Adventure collection from Creative Memories. And it is fabulous to work with and so much fun. And I couldn't imagine not using texture paste and some splatters on this. So let's take a look at this. First, we'll go back to this one. I used texture paste on the blue matte paper and it turned out great. I just love the way it looks with this collection. And here I used it just a little bit thicker on the white base, and that was an awfully fun technique to use. And then on the last page, I did a whole long line of it along the top left, and then on the right page on the bottom right. So today I just want to go through how I did that, because I know some of my people that bought this workshop have questions about it, and I want to show you what I used and how I did it. I used the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous stencil. I want to say this one is called Bubbles, but don't quote me on that. I want to look it up and see. I just love the random circles and how they just are kind of misshapen. And it's really a fun stencil to use with texture paste. And I was just using it, so I haven't cleaned it yet. And then instead of the regular matte texture paste, the opaque, or any of the other texture paste, I tried Distress this time. I really love this. I love the thickness of it. I love the matte look when it's all done, and I think you'll understand why once I used it. Of course, I have my palette knife, and then I've brought in some white cardstock too. But let's go ahead and do this blue matte paper, because texture paste isn't only to add to things that are plain colors. It looks really nice when you use it with layers. It adds even more texture when you're using it like this. Now I tilt my paper because that's how I use it. And I like to put the tape on the paper that is on the all-purpose mat. So then I can just hold my stencil over it and just use it as I wish. And this is a technique that works for me. Now, when you open the Distress texture paste, it's a little thicker than normal. If it's too thick for you to work with and you don't quite like that thickness, go ahead and spritz some water in there. That'll work too. But as you can see, I'm able to move it around pretty well. It's just a little bit thicker than normal texture paste, the one that you may be used to. So I want a thin layer on the print paper, and I'm just going to spread it across. I put enough on my knife that I can just bring it across and kind of push this knife down a little bit. Now I love this particular palette knife the best because it does spread in a thin layer. And you see how I'm just kind of scraping it off to the side. That's going to give me a look of unevenness, which I really, really love when I'm using texture paste. And then I'm just going to pick it up without swaying it back and forth on what you've already done, because then you might end up smearing it. So now I've got this beautiful thin layer of texture paste on my paper. And it's going to take maybe 5-10 minutes to dry. Don't use your heat gun, it'll puff up. But it really doesn't take all that long. Now on the next page, I did a little thicker layer. I wanted, let me show you that again so that you can see. And I'll hold it up to the camera a little bit more so you can see that my texture paste is actually on the page just a little bit thicker. And I liked that look as well. So I wanted to try some different techniques. So I'm gonna grab a little more texture paste than I did for the previous one. And I'm not gonna smush it down and layer it quite as much. I want a thick layer on there. So see how this went on nice and evenly, but thick. So you can't quite see through the texture paste to the stencil. Now I'm gonna clean that off, and I wanna lift that up very carefully because again, I don't want that to smear. So lift it straight up and you get that nice thick look, almost like it's a 3D embellishment on the paper. And I love that, don't you? Now I'm going to use this paper in a long way. So maybe you like the stencil so much, you want it all across your page. And I actually did that on my third set of layouts. I did long swatches of texture paste. So let's grab that. And that you just run your knife across the whole stencil. It helps to have that paper down, doesn't it? If you need to put another piece of tape on the stencil in order to hold it, you can do that as well. But once you've got texture paste on the stencil, it does a really good job of holding the stencil down. Now, one question I get asked, how do you clean your stencil? If I'm not using it all in a row like this, I simply take a baby wipe and clean it off. When I'm all done with it, then I'm gonna take it to the sink, rinse it off, and let it dry. And there you go. There's your thick layer of texture paste. I just love it. What do you think? I think you're gonna have a really good time if you purchase this workshop by adding a little bit of texture, little bit of something different. If you don't have the Tim Holtz stencil that I'm using, use any circular stencil that you want. Small circles are really nice too, so you can do that. I hope you have a great time working with your texture paste. And if you're just tuning in to watch, I hope you've learned something new today. Talk to you soon.